Bonafide Reformer, Episode 4. Keir Starmer's Britain, when dissent becomes dangerous. It is an uncomfortable truth. Free speech in the UK is hanging by a thread, if it hasn't already been entirely severed. Under the leadership of Keir Starmer, we are witnessing the chilling consequences of a government more interested in silencing dissent than in safeguarding the freedoms upon which liberal democracy is built. Starmer's recent interventions, particularly his demands for fast and substantive sentences in response to the August 2024 so-called far-right riots, are symptomatic of a wider authoritarian drift. The real crime here is not just the violence of some of the rioters, which I naturally do not condone. It is Starmer's thinly veiled interference in the judiciary, a direct assault on the independence of the courts and the foundation of free speech itself. Keir Starmer's words were clear. Over 400 arrests, and the Prime Minister expected swift justice, fast trials and substantive sentences. Make no mistake, this was not just a declaration of intent, it was a signal to the judiciary. Starmer's pressure on the courts to deliver rapid, harsh sentences is unprecedented in its transparency. The moment a Prime Minister begins to dictate outcomes for those on trial, we have entered dangerous territory. What is left of judicial independence when the leader of the country insists on fast-tracking sentencing for political purposes? For those with short memories, let's recall that Starmer, for all his polished legal credentials, now presides over the very system that he once swore to uphold. But the Starmer who ran the Crown Prosecution Service now seems more comfortable wielding the law as a political weapon than defending the sanctity of the justice system. This is Blairism in its natural, evolved form. Tony Blair too sold an image of modernisation and forward-thinking leadership, only to leave behind a political culture that traded principles for expediency. Blairism promised progressive governance, but in reality, it centralised power and began the slow erosion of civil liberties in the name of security and political dominance. Starmer has taken up that mantle, wielding an ever stronger state under the guise of fighting extremism. I can't help thinking now about Tony Benn, a man whose clarity on democracy and liberty provides a stark contrast to the path we are now on. Benn understood the true nature of power and the dangers that come with it. He famously argued that all power to the people means holding those in power to account. For Benn, the essence of democracy was accountability, and he urged every generation to question those who wield the power. He reminded us that democracy is never secure, and that each generation must continue the fight to preserve it. His principle was simple but profound. Those in authority should fear the people, not the other way around. Benn's 5 essential questions should echo in the ears of anyone witnessing Starmer's government today. What power have you got? Where did you get it from? In whose interest do you exercise it? To whom are you accountable? And how can we get rid of you? These are the questions that ought to be asked of Keir Starmer as he moves to silence dissent, interfere with the judiciary, and treat free speech as a luxury rather than the foundation of liberal democracy. This perpetual struggle for freedom is more urgent now than ever before. Benn warned that each generation must refight the battles for liberty because there is no final victory in the preservation of democracy. The actions we are seeing today, pressure on the courts, swift sentencing dictated by the government, are a clear indication that we are losing this battle, and it's time to take Benn's warning seriously. Without constant vigilance, the freedom to dissent, to speak and to challenge authority will be taken away from us. Starmer's approach is blatant, unabashed authoritarianism. By stifling dissent, his government is continuing the Blairite tradition of slowly constricting the space for public disagreement. The media and political class are swept along by this current, content to trade civil liberties for security and compliance. Dissent, true, messy, uncomfortable dissent, is the lifeblood of Britain's liberal democracy. It is only through dissent that we challenge the status quo, push back against government overreach, and preserve the rights of the individual against the encroachments of the state. What we see now is the deliberate silencing of dissenting voices through legal mechanisms and state pressure. The rioters are merely the first to feel the full weight of Starmer's government. Who will be next? We should not be so naive as to believe that this is a one-off. If the Prime Minister can interfere in the judicial process to ensure swift and harsh punishments for those on the fringes of political discourse, it won't be long before this mechanism is turned against anyone who dares challenge the government's authority. The seeds of authoritarianism have been sown, and they are being watered by the same government that promised to modernise and democratise the country. So it's time for the British public to understand the gravity of the situation. Free speech is not just under threat, it is being dismantled before our eyes. Keir Starmer's actions are a stark reminder that the state, once unleashed, will not stop at the fringes. It will extend its reach, slowly but surely, until every voice that dares challenge the narrative is silenced. Tony Benn warned us of this long ago. Now, it is up to us to heed that warning and fight for our freedoms before they are taken from us entirely. The very essence of liberal democracy is at stake. The question is, will we stand by and allow it to be eroded, or will we rise up, as generations before us did, to protect the right to dissent? This is not just about the far right or about rioters. This is about whether we will allow a government, Starmer's government, to silence dissent and weaponise the judiciary against the people. The answer to that question will define the future of free speech in the UK. Thank you for listening to the Bonafide Reformer podcast. This article was first published on X on 22nd of October 2024 at Noel Reforms.